It was a cold evening in the small town of Brooksville. The rain had just started to fall, thin and icy, covering the streets with a soft silver shine. Emily Parker, a 25-year-old art student, was driving home after a long day at her part-time job. The street was empty, and the gas light on her old car started blinking red. She sighed and whispered, "Not now, please not now." Her phone battery was dead. The nearest gas station was miles away, and there were no cars around. She pulled over, her heart racing. She had only $3 in her purse, not enough for gas. Rain hit the windshield harder. Emily sat there, feeling hopeless. Then, through the blur of the rain, she saw someone walking toward her, a man in an old brown coat, holding a plastic bag. His hair was messy, his face tired, and his shoes looked torn. For a moment, Emily locked the car door. She didn't know who he was. But then he knocked softly on the window and said, "Ma'am, you okay?" Emily rolled the window down just an inch. "I ran out of gas," she said softly. The man smiled kindly. "Yeah, I figured. This road eats gas fast. You got anyone coming to help?" She shook her head. "No. My phone's dead." He nodded slowly. "Hold on," he said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a crumpled $1 bill, then another, and then one more. He counted $3, all wet from the rain. He handed them to her through the small window gap. "Here," he said. "This should get you enough gas to make it home." Emily blinked in shock. "I can't take that," she said quickly. "You need it more than I do." He chuckled. "I'll be fine. You look like you got somewhere you need to be." There was something gentle in his eyes, something kind but deeply sad. Emily hesitated, then slowly reached out and took the money. "Thank you," she whispered. "I'll pay you back, I promise." He smiled again, but this time it was faint. "No need. Just do something good for someone else someday." Then he turned and started walking away into the rain. Emily sat there, staring at the 3 wet bills in her hand. The man had clearly been homeless, his clothes dirty, his hands rough, and his eyes tired. Why would someone like that give away his last dollar? After a few seconds, she stepped out of her car and looked around. The man was already far down the street, disappearing into the shadows. She finally pushed her car to the side, took her purse, and began walking to the small gas station a few blocks away. The cold rain soaked through her jacket, but her mind kept replaying his words. Just do something good for someone else someday. When she reached the gas station, she used the $3 for a small can of gas. The cashier, an older woman, smiled at her and said, "That's not much gas for a night like this." Emily nodded. "I know. But it's enough for now." After filling her car, she decided she couldn't just leave it like that. She needed to find the man again to thank him properly, maybe buy him food or a blanket. She drove slowly down the same road, looking at every corner, every alley. She even rolled her window down, calling out, "Sir. Hello. Are you there?" But there was no answer. The rain kept falling, washing away the footprints on the ground. At last, she reached the spot where he had first knocked on her window. There, on the wet sidewalk, lay something, a small old jacket, folded neatly as if someone had left it on purpose. Emily picked it up. It was damp and heavy. Inside the pocket, there was a small paper note, half torn and almost unreadable. The writing said, "Kindness is the only thing that never goes broke." Emily's heart skipped a beat. Who was this man? She looked around again, calling softly, "Sir? Are you here?" Silence. The wind blew harder, and the street light above flickered. The jacket felt warm in her hands, even though it was wet. She could smell a faint scent of coffee and old wood, the kind of smell that comes from someone who has slept outside for too long. Emily stood there for a long minute. Then she carefully folded the jacket, placed it on her car seat, and drove home quietly. When she reached her apartment, she hung the jacket by her door and stared at it. Something about it felt strange, like it belonged to a story not yet finished. She made tea, sat down by the window, and whispered to herself, "I have to find him." That night, she couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his face, the calm smile, the kind eyes, the way he gave her that dollar without hesitation. The next morning, Emily went back to the same area. She asked around the small grocery store, the gas station, the nearby park. Do you know a homeless man named Jack? She asked one man sitting by the corner. The man squinted at her and said, Jack? You mean the one who never takes food but always helps others? Haven't seen him in days. Emily frowned. You mean he's real? You know him? The man nodded slowly. Yeah. Kind guy. Some folks say he used to be rich once, but who knows? He doesn't talk about it. Emily's heart started beating faster. Who was this man who helped her? Why did he disappear like that? She looked down at the old jacket again, holding it close. The wind whispered through the streets, almost like a voice saying, this is just the beginning. The next few days passed slowly, but Emily couldn't stop thinking about the homeless man who gave her his last dollar. Every time she saw his old jacket hanging by her door, her heart felt heavy. She kept asking herself the same question, why would someone who had nothing give so much kindness? On the fifth morning, she made up her mind she was going to find him. She dressed warmly, packed some sandwiches, a water bottle, and an extra blanket. Then she took the old jacket with her. Maybe someone would recognize it. As she drove back to the street where she first met him, the same feeling of mystery filled her chest. The air was cold and gray, the same kind of weather as that night. At the gas station, the old woman at the counter looked up and smiled. Back again, sweetheart. Emily nodded. Yes. I'm looking for someone. A homeless man named Jack. He helped me here the other night. The woman's smile faded a little. Jack, she said softly. I think I know who you mean. Kind fella. Comes by sometimes, always quiet. Helps people with their groceries even when he's got nothing himself. Emily leaned closer. Do you know where I can find him? The woman shook her head. Last time I saw him was maybe 3 days ago. He was headed toward the old bridge by River Street. Maybe try there. Emily thanked her and left, her heart beating faster. The bridge area wasn't a safe place, broken lights, graffiti walls, and the sound of water rushing below. But she didn't care. She needed answers. As she walked under the bridge, she saw small camps, a few blankets, old boxes, and a fire pit with smoke still rising. A man with a gray beard sat near the fire, warming his hands. Excuse me, Emily said softly. I'm looking for someone named Jack. He's tall, maybe in his 30s. Kind eyes. The old man looked up slowly. Jack, huh? What do you want with him? I owe him a thank you. He helped me when no one else did. The man smiled faintly. Yeah, that sounds like him. Always helping. Always giving. He don't stay long anywhere, though. Comes and goes like the wind. Emily took out the old jacket and showed it to him. Does this look familiar? The man's eyes widened. He touched the jacket carefully. Yeah, that's his. He left it here 2 nights ago. Said he wouldn't be needing it anymore. Emily frowned. What do you mean? The man stared into the fire. He said something strange. He said, tell anyone looking for me they'll find me when they're ready, not before. Then he walked away. A shiver ran down Emily's spine. Did he say where he was going? The man shook his head. No. But I heard him talk to someone the night before. A man in a black car. Fancy car. The kind rich folks drive. Emily blinked. A black car. Yeah, the old man said. They were arguing. I heard the driver say, you can't keep hiding forever, Jack. Then the car drove off, and Jack disappeared. Emily felt confused. Why would a rich man be looking for someone homeless? Who was Jack really? She thanked the old man and gave him some food before walking back to her car. The sound of the rushing river filled the air. She stood there for a while, staring at the water, thinking about that night again, the dollar, the note, the kindness. Something about all this didn't make sense. That night, back at home, Emily couldn't sleep again. The mystery was growing deeper. So she decided to do something new. She went online. She made a post on social media with a photo of the old jacket and wrote, looking for a homeless man named Jack. He gave me his last dollar when I ran out of gas. I just want to thank him. Please share if you've seen him. Within a few hours, the post started getting attention. People commented things like, Wow, that's so kind. I've seen a man like that downtown. He helped me too, gave me food once when I had nothing. By morning, the Post had over 50,000 shares. People from all over the state were writing stories about how a man named Jack had helped them too. Emily read each comment with wide eyes. It was like Jack had touched dozens of lives. Then, around noon, she got a private message from an unknown account. The message said, "If you really want to find him, go to River Street, under the bridge, tomorrow at sunset. Come alone." Emily's hands trembled. The message had no name, no profile picture. She typed back quickly, "Who are you? Do you know Jack?" No reply. She sat there staring at her phone, unsure if she should go. It could be a trap, or it could be the clue she needed. The next day, the sky was cloudy again, like the night she first met Jack. Emily parked near the bridge just as the sun began to set. The orange light touched the water, and the wind grew colder. She looked around, no one there. Only the sound of the river and the echo of cars passing above. "Jack," she called softly. "It's Emily. Are you here?" Her voice bounced off the concrete walls. No answer. She took a few steps closer to the water. The air felt heavy. She looked down and saw footprints in the mud. Fresh ones. "Hello," she called again. Then suddenly, a voice came from behind her, calm, low, and familiar. "You shouldn't have come here, Emily." She turned around quickly and there he was. Jack. But this time, he didn't look like the same homeless man she met that rainy night. His beard was trimmed, his clothes were clean, and his eyes looked sharper, different. For a moment, Emily couldn't speak. The man who had given her his last dollar now looked like someone who didn't need saving at all. "Jack," she whispered. What's going on?" He gave her a small, tired smile. "You were never supposed to find me." The wind blew again, and the sun disappeared behind the clouds. Emily stood frozen, her heart racing. Something told her the truth she was about to learn would change everything. The sound of rushing water filled the air as Emily stood frozen beneath the old bridge. The dim orange light from the sunset made shadows stretch across the concrete walls. In front of her stood Jack, but he looked completely different now. His hair was shorter, his beard was gone, and he wore a black jacket that looked new and expensive. The man who once looked tired and broken now seemed calm and confident, almost like a different person. Emily took a small step closer. "Jack, is that really you?" He nodded slowly. "Yes. It's me." Her eyes searched his face. "But, how? You look different. You're not the same man who gave me his last dollar." Jack gave a faint smile. "People change when they have to." Emily frowned. "I don't understand. Why were you pretending to be homeless? Why did you help me?" Jack looked away toward the water, his voice low. "Because sometimes, you see people's true hearts only when you have nothing." There was a long pause. The only sound was the wind moving through the bridge and the faint noise of cars above them. Emily stepped closer again. "You said I shouldn't have come here. Why?" Jack sighed deeply. "Because now you're part of something you don't understand. And once you're in, it's hard to get out." Emily's chest tightened. "Jack, you're scaring me. Just tell me the truth." Before he could answer, the sound of a car engine echoed nearby. Headlights flashed under the bridge. Jack's expression changed immediately from calm to alert. "We have to go," he said quickly. Emily turned. A black SUV stopped at the far end of the bridge. Two men stepped out, both wearing dark suits. One of them shouted, "Jack Harris. Don't move." Emily's eyes widened. "Harris." Jack grabbed her hand. "Come on." They ran down the side path by the river, the gravel crunching under their feet. The men shouted again, their voices echoing. "Stop right there." Emily's heart pounded. "Jack, who are they? What's happening?" "They're not who they look like," Jack said. "And I can't let them take me back." "Back where?" she shouted. Jack didn't answer. They kept running until they reached a small tunnel at the end of the bridge. He pulled her inside. The air smelled damp and old. Jack leaned against the wall, catching his breath. "You shouldn't have come, Emily. You should have just forgotten about that night." She stared at him, trembling. "Forget? You gave me your last dollar, Jack. You disappeared. People online said you've helped so many others. Who are you? Jack looked at her for a long time, then said quietly, I used to have everything: money, cars, a big house, even people who worked for me. But one day, it all stopped meaning anything. Emily blinked. You're saying you were rich? He nodded slowly. I was. My real name is Jack Harris. My father owns one of the biggest companies in New York. But when my fiancée, Sarah, died in a car crash 2 years ago, I walked away from everything. Emily's voice softened. I'm sorry, Jack. He nodded, eyes glistening. I blamed myself for her death. I was driving that night. After that, I couldn't stand the sight of money, power, or fame. I just left. I wanted to live like a normal person, or maybe a forgotten one. I gave away my things, lived on the streets, and helped anyone I could. It made me feel human again. Emily stood there, stunned. The homeless man who gave her his last dollar was actually the son of a billionaire. But why are those men chasing you? She asked. They work for my father, Jack said bitterly. He wants me to come back to take over the company. But I'm not ready. I don't want that life anymore. Before Emily could respond, footsteps echoed outside the tunnel. The men were close again. Jack grabbed Emily's arm. You have to go now. They can't see you with me. I'm not leaving you, she said firmly. Jack looked at her, his expression softening. You're brave. But this isn't your fight. Then he reached into his pocket and handed her something small, a folded paper. If anything happens, keep this safe. It's the only thing that tells the truth. Before Emily could open it, Jack turned and walked toward the sound of the men. She watched him disappear into the shadows. Jack, she called, but he didn't look back. Moments later, bright flashlights filled the tunnel. Emily hid behind a pillar, holding her breath. She heard one of the men shout, "We found him," followed by shuffling footsteps and distant voices. Then silence. When Emily finally stepped out, the SUV was gone. Jack was gone too. The only thing left behind was a small silver key on the ground. She picked it up. It had the letters J.H engraved on it. Emily looked at the folded paper in her hand. She slowly opened it. Inside was a single handwritten line. Sometimes, to find yourself, you have to lose everything first. Tears filled her eyes. She looked at the empty road where the SUV had vanished. Jack, what are you hiding? She whispered. That night, back at home, Emily couldn't sleep again. She placed the silver key on her table and stared at it. The initials shimmered under the lamplight. J.H, she whispered. Jack Harris. She opened her laptop and typed Jack Harris missing into the search bar. Within seconds, hundreds of news articles appeared. Billionaire's son still missing after 2 years. Jack Harris walked away from fortune after fiancé's death. Family still searching for answers. Emily leaned back, her heart racing. So it was true. The homeless man who gave her his last dollar wasn't just kind, he was someone running from a life most people dream of. She looked again at the small silver key and whispered, "What does this open, Jack?" Then her phone buzzed with a new message. No name. No photo. You shouldn't have followed him. Now they know about you too. Emily's hands trembled. She looked around her quiet apartment. The lights outside flickered. Something was very wrong. The night felt heavier than usual. Emily sat in her small apartment, staring at her phone. The message still glowed on the screen. You shouldn't have followed him. Now they know about you too. Her hands were shaking. She locked her door and peeked out the window. Everything looked quiet, but something about the silence felt wrong, too still, too cold. She turned back to the silver key lying on her table. It caught the faint light from her lamp, shining softly. The letters J.H stared back at her, almost like they were calling her name. What are you hiding, Jack? She whispered again. Her mind raced. The folded paper Jack had given her said, sometimes, to find yourself, you have to lose everything first. It wasn't just a note, it was a clue. Emily picked up the key and looked closely. It wasn't an ordinary house key, it was smaller, sleeker, maybe for a box or locker. On the edge, there was a number engraved, 17 Rs. Rs, she said softly. River Street. Her heart skipped a beat. Could the key belong to something near the bridge? Without thinking twice, she grabbed her coat and car keys. The rain had started again, tapping lightly against her windows. When she reached River Street, the whole area was quiet, except for the sound of the river flowing beneath the bridge. Street lights flickered as if warning her to turn back. She parked her car and stepped out, holding the small flashlight on her phone. The air smelled like wet concrete and rust. Under the bridge, she saw an old metal box half buried near the wall, almost invisible under dirt and leaves. Her heart began to race. She knelt and brushed the dirt away. The lock on it had a small plate that read, "Locker 17, ours." The key fit perfectly. With shaking hands, she turned it. The lock clicked open. Inside the box was a black notebook, an old photograph, and a flash drive. Emily opened the notebook first. It was filled with handwritten notes, dates, addresses, and short sentences. Some of them read, "Money doesn't fix pain. They lied about the accident. Find proof before it's too late." Her eyes widened. Lied about the accident. She turned the pages faster. At the back of the notebook was a newspaper clipping. Sarah Collins' accident or something else. Sarah. Jack's fiancée. Emily felt a chill crawl up her spine. Could it be that Sarah's death wasn't an accident? She pulled out the photograph next. It was old and faded, showing Jack with a young woman, Sarah, both smiling on a sunny day. But what shocked Emily was the man standing behind them. He looked powerful, serious, and familiar. She looked closer. It was Richard Harris, Jack's father, the billionaire. On the back of the photo were written words in Jack's handwriting. "He knows more than he says." Emily stared at the picture, her mind spinning. Did Jack believe his father had something to do with Sarah's death? Suddenly, a car engine roared nearby. Headlights swept across the bridge. Emily froze and quickly closed the box, holding it tight to her chest. The black SUV she'd seen before stopped only a few feet away. Two men stepped out, the same ones from the tunnel. "Emily Parker," one of them said, his voice sharp. "We need you to come with us." She backed away. "Why? What do you want from me?" The man smiled slightly. "You have something that doesn't belong to you." Emily looked down at the box in her arms. "This? It belongs to Jack." "That's exactly why you need to hand it over," the man said. "He's in danger. You don't understand what you're getting into." Emily's heart raced. "If he's in danger, then why are you chasing him?" The man's face turned cold. "Because he's not who you think he is." Before they could move closer, another voice echoed from the shadows. "She's not going anywhere." Jack stepped out from behind one of the pillars, rain dripping from his jacket. His eyes were sharp, his voice steady. The men froze for a second. "Jack, don't make this harder," one said. Jack took a step forward. "Tell my father he can't control me anymore. The truth will come out." Emily whispered, "Jack, what's happening?" He looked at her and said softly, "They're trying to hide something about Sarah's death. I found proof. That's why they've been following me." The men pulled something from their jackets, not guns, but black devices that looked like trackers. "We're not here to hurt you, Jack," one said. "We just need the drive." Jack shook his head. "No. That drive has the truth. I'm not giving it up." Before anyone could react, Jack grabbed Emily's hand and ran. They raced down the narrow path by the river, the men chasing after them. Rain poured harder now, blurring everything. Emily clutched the box tight as they turned a corner and ducked behind an old boat shed. Jack leaned against the wall, breathing heavily. "Are you okay?" Emily nodded, still shaking. "Jack, what's on that drive?" Jack met her eyes. "Evidence files about Sarah's accident. It wasn't random. Someone tampered with her car's brakes. And my father's name is all over the company that handled it." Emily felt dizzy. "You think your father?" Jack's face darkened. "I don't think. I know." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The rain softened, and the sound of the river filled the silence. Finally, Jack said, "I never meant to drag you into this, Emily. You were just supposed to be someone I helped, not someone who risked her life for me." Emily smiled weakly. "Well, too late for that." Jack smiled back, the first real smile she'd seen since that night. "You remind me of Sarah," he said quietly. She had the same heart. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed nearby. The men were close again. Jack looked at Emily. Take the drive and go. I'll meet you tomorrow, same gas station, 9 p.m. But. Go, he shouted. Emily ran through the rain, clutching the flash drive and the box. She didn't look back. Behind her, she heard shouts, footsteps, and then silence. When she finally reached her car, she looked at the flash drive in her hand. The label read, Truth, Final. Her heart pounded. Jack had risked everything for this. And tomorrow night, she was going to find out exactly what was on it. The rain had stopped, but the night air still carried a quiet tension. Emily sat in her small apartment, staring at the flash drive lying on the table beside her. The label still read in Jack's neat handwriting, Truth, Final. She hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his face wet from the rain, his eyes filled with sadness and courage. Now, it was almost 9 p.m. Jack had told her to meet him at the same gas station, the place where their strange story began. She took a deep breath, picked up the flash drive, and whispered, Whatever happens tonight, I'll know the truth. The gas station looked the same as it did weeks ago, quiet, almost empty. The faint glow of the neon sign reflected off puddles on the ground. Emily parked and waited. Every minute felt like an hour. Finally, at 9:12 p.m., a black car appeared in the distance. Her heart jumped, but as it got closer, she realized it wasn't Jack's old figure walking toward her. It was Richard Harris, Jack's father. He stepped out of the car wearing a long coat, his face calm but his eyes sharp. Miss Parker, he said. We need to talk. Emily froze. Where's Jack? He won't be coming, Richard said coldly. You've done enough already. Give me the drive, and you can walk away safely. Emily clutched her bag. You mean the same way you walked away from your son's life? His jaw tightened. You don't understand, young lady. That information belongs to my company. It could destroy thousands of jobs, ruin people's lives. Emily took a step back. It's the truth about Sarah, isn't it? Richard's eyes flickered for just a second, that tiny moment of guilt. That girl's death was a tragedy, he said quickly. But digging up the past won't bring her back. Emily's voice trembled but stayed strong. Then why did you hide it? Why chase your own son? He didn't answer. Instead, he sighed and reached into his pocket, not for a weapon, but for a photograph. He held it out to her. In the photo, a younger Richard stood beside Sarah and Jack, smiling proudly. I loved her like a daughter, he said quietly. I didn't want Jack to know she was meeting with people who wanted to expose the company. She got caught in the middle. Emily's heart pounded. You mean the accident wasn't an accident? Richard looked away. It wasn't supposed to happen. But if this goes public, it will destroy everything my family built. Emily stepped back, shaking her head. Jack deserves to know. Then, from behind Richard's car, a voice said firmly. He already knows. Both of them turned. Jack stepped into the light. He looked tired but alive. There was a small cut on his forehead, and his jacket was torn, but his eyes were calm and steady. Dad, he said quietly. You always cared more about the company than about people. Richard's face went pale. Jack, listen to me. Jack raised a hand. No, I listened for years. But not anymore. He turned to Emily. Do you have it? Emily nodded and handed him the flash drive. Jack looked at it for a moment, the small piece of plastic that held the truth he'd been running from for 2 years. Richard took a step forward. If you release that, you'll destroy our name. Jack's voice was calm. Maybe our name deserves to be destroyed. There was a long silence. The wind moved softly through the empty gas station. Then Jack smiled sadly and looked at Emily. You were the only person who saw me as more than a broken man. You didn't ask who I was. You just cared. Emily's eyes filled with tears. You gave me your last dollar, Jack. I couldn't just forget you. Jack took a deep breath and turned back to his father. You taught me about money, Dad. But Emily taught me something better, kindness. He plugged the flash drive into his phone and pressed send. Richard shouted, Jack, don't. But it was too late. The files were sent to every news outlet, every media station. The truth was out. For a long moment, no one spoke. The sound of distant thunder rolled across the sky. Then Jack said softly, "It's over." Richard looked defeated. "You've ruined us," he whispered. Jack shook his head. "No, Dad. Maybe this is how we start over, by being honest." Richard turned and walked back to his car slowly, disappearing into the night. Emily and Jack stood there quietly under the gas station light. The rain began to fall again, gentle this time. She looked at him. "What will you do now?" He smiled faintly. "Maybe go back home. Face everything. But not alone." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small folded paper, the same kind he'd given her that first night. "I never forgot this," he said, handing it to her. "You kept me human when I'd forgotten who I was." Emily opened the paper. Inside was a check for $100,000, and below it, a handwritten note. "For the woman who reminded me that kindness still exists. Jack." Tears filled her eyes. "Jack, I can't take this." He smiled softly. "Then promise me something, use it to help someone else. That's how it started, remember?" She nodded slowly. Jack looked out at the dark road, the rain falling gently on his face. "Funny, isn't it?" he said. $1 changed everything." Emily smiled through her tears. "It wasn't the dollar, Jack. It was your heart." They stood there for a moment, two people connected by one act of kindness that neither of them expected. Then Jack said quietly, "Goodbye, Emily." She whispered, "Goodbye, Jack." He walked away down the same street where they first met, his figure fading into the rain, into the night, into freedom. Emily watched until he disappeared completely. Then she looked at the old gas pump where it all began, smiled softly, and whispered to herself. Sometimes, the poorest hearts give the richest love. The screen fades to black. The end.